Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of Swaim Strategies, a consulting firm dedicated to nonprofit fundraising events. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. We're excited to be continuing the conversation with Dr. Paul Zak. If you missed last week's episode, we encourage you to jump in and start there because Dr. Zak imparted a lot of wisdom on us about the art of storytelling and how storytelling can really move and generate generosity and giving and action. If you don't know Dr. Zak, I want to do a quick introduction. He's a neuroscientist. He's been on a personal quest to understand the human connection. And he is the author of two books we're going to talk about today, Immersion and The Little Book of Happiness. He's also more than a neuroscientist. Little fun facts about him. Wired named him one of the 10 sexiest geeks in 2005. He's created science dialogues for movies, including The Amazing Spider-Man, and he is a TV regular in places ranging as far from CNN to The Bachelorette. So, Dr. Zak, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Well, we left off.
Thanks for embarrassing me. That was so fun.
Well, we left off our last conversation talking a little bit about immersion. I wanted to just have sort of by way of introduction, you talk about what is immersion? What do you mean by that term?
Right. So we identified this combination of neurologic signals associated with attention and emotional resonance that is, by all accounts, how the brain values social emotional experiences. So what is valued is what is remembered and acted on. And so if I can create a high immersion experience, then I'm more likely to be able to influence your behavior. So again, I'm using immersion with a capital I here as a term of art. So for example, in the VR world, this is kind of used randomly or subjectively. But this is a 1 second frequency data stream. I had to give it a word because it's a combination of neural signals. We combine these signals to maximize our predictive accuracy. So neurologic immersion predicts outcomes consistently with sort of 90% accuracy plus, which songs will be hits, which movies will make money, which fundraising videos will actually get donations. By the way, we did an interesting study published a couple of years ago with was because I'm kind of in the media, people find me. And at first I was like, I'm so busy, I don't want to talk to people. Then I realized, these people are so smart, they have really interesting questions. So this is a site whose name I've forgotten that hosts videos for all kinds of charities.
Oh.
You can find it or I'll tell you what it is. And he said, our problem is that we know that the longer someone watches a video, the more likely they are to donate, but we don't know why they watch one longer than the other. And, could you help us figure this out? And so again, we thought neurologic immersion might be part of that story. And so we designed a study in which we pay people to watch a bunch of videos. You can watch it for 1 second. They ran about 3 minutes total, roughly. Or you can watch the whole 3 minutes or stop at a minute. You may earn $5 every time you watch the video. And so again, from the sort of lazy brain perspective, you'd say, well, if I like money, which I presume people do, and I can watch, I think there was a total of 12 videos. I can do that in, 20 seconds. I can just do a couple of seconds on each one, earn my $5. After you finish watching each video, you got a prompt. This is all done by computer. By computer, it says, hey, you just finished watching this video. You earn $5. Do you want to donate some of the money you just earned to a charity that's associated with the social ill that was shown in the video? So it is a good question, right? Why would you ever watch a video?
Yeah.
It's like the skip button on YouTube. Like, we're hovering over the skip, but every once in a while you go, this is kind of interesting. I'll just watch this commercial. And so, we found the same kind of response, which is the higher their neurologic immersion, the longer people watched, and the longer they watched, the more money they gave. And so I think if we think about the brain as, again, this very energy hungry organ that takes so much energy to run, I really kind of got to get down to creating value for you as a viewer or as a person at an event pretty rapidly before I kind of get down to, okay, I just have to spend my neurologic resources to keep me upright, breathing, and conscious.
Yep. Creating immersive experiences can actually be done on purpose, y'all.
Yes.
That can happen. And you've developed a way for folks to do that.
we refer to it as the CERTA framework because of the acronym. Can you walk us through that framework?
Sure. Yeah. So try to summarize all this into something practical. So CERTA is SIRTA. The S is for staging. So that's, again, making people comfortable. We talked about that in the previous episode. So I don't want to rush people. I want them to be relaxed, let them use the restroom, give them a nice cool beverage. So put them in the right kind of physiologic state to be able to absorb that information. I is for immersion. I want to tell a story with high immersion. Um, there's not one universal story. There are different audiences who care about different things. So R is for relevance. So I really want to think about what's relevant to that person. So in the previous episode, I briefly said, thinking about people's personality types as the kind of story that will resonate with them. But for donors, really think about what they care about. What have they given to in the past? What's their passion now? Why are they here in the room talking to you? And so there may be different stories for different audiences. So if the story is relevant, it has iconography, it has music, it has themes that resonate with that person's lived experience, and that will generally generate higher immersion. The T is for targeting. So that is, think about finding those super fans. So neurologically, we can find these people who are positive outliers. They love this experience and they will share their enthusiasm with other people and they want to be asked. So when you have big donors, ask them to help, ask them for referrals, ask them to record a testimonial for you. They love it so much. If they're super fans, they're really involved in it, right? So again, not every super fan wants to, say, record a video for you, but you can ask. And for many super fans, they love it so much. So as listeners may know, all the movie studios and almost all the big TV networks now have fandom departments. They cultivate these super fans. They write fan fiction. They go to Comic-Con. Find your fundraising super fans. Who are your super fans for this event or experience? And the A is for action. So oftentimes I've seen neurologic immersion for hundreds or thousands of commercials in particular. So commercials are useful for us because you can get sales data, so you can actually figure out proxies like YouTube views. So you can actually figure out if they're effective or not. So it helps us tune the models. And often in commercials, and I'm sure in fundraising, we tell this story, we create an event, we have this experience, and then we sort of like kind of hope you're out that we'd like to get money from you. So what we found is that if that call to action occurs at an immersion peak, it's going to be more effective than if immersion is low. So that immersion peak often is in the middle of a story. If I have a narrative arc and I'm resolving that tension, then I've kind of let some of that energy go. And so when we think about neurologic immersion, is it's tension in the brain, and you can dissipate that tension by doing something, right? So you might have an ask in the middle, if you're creating a film, for example, in the middle of that story, you might have a reminder of the need in the middle of that story, as opposed to, again, waiting till the event's all over. It's been an hour. We had a nice dinner and we had coffee and dessert. We met someone who's going to benefit from this, and then we're just tired.
Yeah.
Right. So really think about kind of moving that ask earlier in the event while people still have that motivation, that energy, again, because the brain is really just going to deplete its resources.
Can we just put that on a t-shirt, what you just said?
It's true.
That is the fundraising t-shirt right there.
Well, I want to dissect these just a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's talk staging first. Staging was a game changer for us because we, with a lot of our organizations, are focused on, committees that dive into things like theme and decorations and what the experience is going to be like. And intuitively, I think for us, we kind of had this gut feeling that that's not what it's about. Like, that is not why people come. It's not the thing that they leave talking about. But understandably, those things make for a rounded experience that is complete and feels good. But when we invested our energy in the staging, it was like, oh, that is the necessary piece of the puzzle. So for us, staging, we're thinking like guests coming to a fundraising event. The very first thing that we make sure we do is communicate in advance with the guests that it's a fundraising event. So making sure that they get communication with us in advance about what they're going to eat, when dinner's being served, what the theme is, what to wear, where to park, and that there will be an opportunity to donate so that folks come ready. The next thing we dive into is when they get there, it should be very easy to find. If you've ever been to big hotels or convention centers or casinos, if you're using any of those places as your venue and your guest wanders for 40 minutes trying to find you, they're arriving very frustrated and may not even decide to stay because their frustration level is high. But if there are greeters and there's clear signage and it's easy to find, and right when you walk up, you're greeted and your name is on a list and you're expected versus, I'm sorry, who are you?
Right.
It changes.
Even better if you have pictures, if you recognize if it's a repeat donor. Oh, hello, Mr. Smith. Hello, Mrs. Smith. Like,
yes. And it changes for them their sense of belonging. And then the ease of when they walk into the room, it's really easy to get to the bar. It's really easy to get connected to other people. As soon as we put barriers up, like a big line to the bar or in like a pinch point where it's hard to get through, it changes the flow and the energy. But all of those pieces to us are staging. And what we found is that when we do that well, we are now primed to be able to do all the other components. Are there other things that you would suggest in that environment when you're creating like an experience, an event, that help prepare people or create staging for that immersion?
Yeah, I think it's first of all wonderful. I'm just such big fans of what you do. I think the other missing part is a little camaraderie before the event begins. That event might be a speaker, it might be a dinner. Have a chance, have some appetizers, have a bar, and have a chance for people to get to know each other. So I know the name tags are kind of weird, but just so I can see people's names. I spoke about a month ago at the Denver Museum of Science and Nature, and public outreach, not explicitly fundraising, but ultimately fundraising, right?
Right.
And so what they didn't do, but I did on my own, was I'm the featured keynote speaker. And I went and circulated for the 20 minutes before the event started. Like they're showing up to see me, right? So I don't know if it was paid tickets or not. Actually, I don't really know. But anyway, I'm sort of the headliner of the show. I'm going to be there. And after the show's over, everyone kind of disappeared. So yeah, have that person circulate. So if you've got a person who's benefiting from this, who's again, a patient, a student, whatever, let them circulate a little bit. I mean, you don't want to give away kind of the big reveal that they're coming on stage, but if you've got a speaker coming in, kind of utilize them. I would say, like, you flew me in, you're paying me to do this. So put me to work. I'm happy to help out. And so that kind of building camaraderie, what I found, and I found in many events, is that people kind of congregate with people they know. And so you need sort of a catalyst to go, oh, you should meet Bob there. So there were a couple of people I knew who came because it was in Denver and they knew I was coming and I invited them. And so they were like singletons. So I just put them in groups. I'm like, hey, I'm kind of the master of ceremonies because I'm the speaker or whatever. And so I said, oh, this is my friend Sharon. Hey, what's your name? Oh, Bob. Okay, Bob, this is Sharon. And she lives here in Denver just like you. And, you can actually facilitate those kinds of connections that most of us find pretty pleasant.
Yeah. That facilitation moment is actually something that I really appreciate at an event.
Yep.
We have a colleague that we've done a lot of work with that I always call him the conversation bomber because he picks up on little things and then does that intro and then leaves. So he's really good at making sure that everyone in the room feels seen and connected, but he doesn't have to be the one holding the connection, right? He like makes that introduction. Yeah.
That guy's worth his weight in gold, right?
Oh,
So if you can find one of those people who can kind of make that warm setting. And then what happens is people will sit at the same table, right, for the event. So now I've met someone, maybe came with my wife, but I don't know anybody else. But now I just met 3 people that I like and I'm chatting with them. Another good key is if people hang around afterwards. And so I think that's also a really nice thing. If there's a reason to hang around, like, hey, event's over, we're going to have coffee and feel free to stay as long as you like.
Yep.
Oh, that's a huge win. Think of that. Again, it's like I said, for, watching these fundraising videos, the longer they stay, the more you've kind of captured them in terms of their commitment to your cause.
Yeah.
Yep. In our last conversation, we talked a lot about storytelling. And when I think about events and immersion, can you talk a little bit about how storytelling can help achieve immersion?
Right. So in the lazy brain, I don't want to expend energy. The brain doesn't want to expend energy, which is a scarce resource, unless there's something valuable to me.
Mm.
And so when we think about fundraising events is how do I make this sufficiently valuable? So networking is one,
Yep.
and that I don't mean that in a really a business sense. It's friendly, people being friendly. I mean, it could be a business thing too, but hey, here's one of your, oh, you live in Denver? Yeah, me too. Okay, great. So that's a value for humans. Learning something about our social experience is valuable. So that's where storytelling comes in. One of the theories of why we are not running out of stories is that stories allow us to inhabit worlds that we're not familiar
Yeah.
with and learn something about that. So
Yeah.
the classic example is why teenagers go to these slasher movies that no one over 25 really wants to see. If you're a teenager and you're going to be on your own soon, what do these movies teach you? If you're in the cabin in the woods with your stupid friends and you're inside, stay inside, don't go outside. So there's sort of a safety,
Yeah.
thing there. Don't be a stupid kid. And so I think storytelling does the same thing. It teaches us about people in different worlds, and that enriches our own lives and gives us a sense of the kind of breadth of experience that we may not have. I really love the example that you guys gave of using VR experiences. That's a great way to enhance that storytelling that
Mm-hmm.
does generally increase the neurologic immersion. And also the novelty is kind of important too. So if your event this year is the same as the year before, is the same as the year before, then it's just not as valuable. So having some novelty, I know you guys know all this, but having something different, having a surprise, having that unexpected person show up or experience is really valuable to the brain. So I think again, thinking this as creating value for that potential donor, I think is a great way to approach the way you design these experiences.
We may say this all the time, but having Dr. Paul Zak come on this podcast and help saying it is a great third-party validation of some of these pieces. I love, yes, if it is the same thing over and over and over, there isn't that novelty to pique a donor in a different way.
Yeah.
And to prompt action from them maybe in a different way.
Well, I think surprise and delight, as we talk
absolutely.
about a lot, also plays into relevance, which is the third piece of the sort of framework. I'm wondering, is there a way to measure relevance for your audience?
It's a great question.
Other than when they stop watching your video.
Right. I mean, we would do it neurologically, but I think it's really understanding where that person comes from. So they have a particular ethnic group or educational setting. Pre-pandemic, I would go to New York City a lot for meetings, and I did my PhD at University of Pennsylvania, and they have a pen club in New York. Again, I'm a cheap guy, so I can stay in Midtown for like half the price of a hotel by staying in the pen club. And so there's a restaurant, there's meeting rooms. It's a really nice place to spend a week. And everyone there went to Penn. So you have a shared experience that you can talk about. It's weird to go to an Ivy League school. It's just kind of odd. And so you actually end up kind of forming these weird friendships because you have some point of contact. So I think the same thing for relevance. If the story I'm telling has some point of contact, it has some kind of iconography, some kind of historical roots. It talks about maybe you're an alumnus of this university, then you have something to hang on to, as opposed to you're here because your friend invited you and you just don't want to disappoint your friend. You don't really know why you're here. So doing some kind of deep dives on people's background. I mean, you know this already, on their background. And there might be separate events. It could be an event for my Hispanic donors in Denver, and it could be an event for my newly arrived people in Denver. It could be, right, there could be several different events that are going to be a little bit focused. And so, I really think about kind of specialization. Even though we said in the previous episode, getting people together, that congregating is really valuable neurologically, increases immersion. I also may want to do this, the T inserta, do this sort of targeting and having these individuals who are going to be more easily connected to each other. So I don't have a good answer for that. I think it's an ongoing open question.
Well, and I love the idea there that it's not all one size fits all.
Yeah.
Right. I think often our fundraising friends would like to have one event do absolutely everything for them with every body. And I think your point of specialization starts to be how we become more sophisticated in looking at our event layout and our purpose. And I think those can fuel all of these pieces in thinking about each one of these pieces and each thing we're doing at our event having a purpose for that audience, which the audience can feel, and I would imagine also enhances their experience of all of these pieces if they feel like this event was built for them.
Well,
Right. And also sometimes, I'm sorry, I think sometimes, everyone on the fundraising list gets an invite to all the events.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, how about this really targeted? And that personal letter. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We have this event they think will be very valuable to you, or, it's focused on the things that you've done already. This, just to give a plug to the Denver Science and Nature Museum, this event was called Do You Trust Science? It's a very provocative question, and as you guys know, there's a lot of work on trust. And so now we have this people who are kind of skeptics. And I said, hey, I'm gonna kind of set up some questions here, but we have a lot of time to discuss. And I've written and done research on this topic, and there's no right answer here, but there's probably some better answers. And so I give them a lot of credit because they put a provocative program together, right? And I said, look, I'm not an immunologist. I'm not going to talk about COVID or Fauci.
Yeah.
That's just, that's too incendiary for me. And it's just not my area. But I'll talk about actually the process of science and why you have a lot of things published that are actually not going to be replicated, that are actually wrong, and the reasons for that, and try to make you more of an informed reader of the newspapers or even scientific journals, which are, all online now. And so, I think it's scary to do something that's provocative, but if I think about this as creating value for a select group of potential donors or actual donors, we're going to self-select for people who go, oh yeah, I'm kind of interested in this topic. And again, I wasn't taking shots at anybody. I certainly wouldn't do that. It's not my place to do that. And I'm apolitical, so I don't have a dog in any fight. So they knew, they knew all that before they had to come out. But it was a provocative and almost scary kind of topic. So people can self-select for people to go, okay, this is kind of provocative, but maybe I'll learn something and it might be weird and fun. And I think I'll go.
Yeah. I think in the nonprofit space, we call targeting segmentation, like list segmentation, where we might target a particular demographic or audience or donor level for a direct mail appeal or for an event. And I think it's an important element that sometimes gets left out when we're talking about, as Kristen said, the fundraising event to serve all. And sometimes it just doesn't.
I want a one and done. So some people have brain chemistry that makes them more available to immersive experiences, and they have potential to be super fans. Mm-hmm. How do you make those folks a target?
Yeah. Wow. Great neuroscience question. Thank you. So what we found in the data is that individuals by personality who are more empathic and more agreeable tend to have this bigger immersion response, bigger neurologic response to a story or an experience. And so these are people who are very warm. They tend to have a lot of friends. They tend to be social. They also tend to be happier. And so again, really thinking about if I can identify, I don't need everyone to be that way, but how do I get them involved? And I think that's where the ask comes in again. Yep. If we see people who are smiling, they're energetic, like, okay, let me go talk to this person. By the way, it's about 60% of these are women and 40% are men. So it'll skew a little bit female, but not greatly. And so find that person who's bouncing their chair, who has energy, and ask them, hey, it seems like you really like this event. Tell me more about what worked for you, what didn't work. We'd love to have you give us feedback and help us because it seems like this was a great event for you. And maybe that's a one and done. Maybe it's just this event really resonated with them, and they're not going to be kind of long-term donors. But, you could ask them do you have a couple of friends you think we should invite to our next event? I mean, that's a real simple ask that gets them involved in the process of either helping out, volunteering. I'm a big fan of volunteering, by the way. I think, if you can't give money, but you can volunteer or you can recommend other people, you can post on social media. There's all kinds of ways people can get involved that make them feel good that don't require writing a check.
67% of volunteers become lifetime donors because they immerse themselves in the mission. So I'm a huge fan of volunteering for that reason. Well, as we tap into the last element of CERTA, so we have action. Action is an interesting one for us because so often the action we're trying to get people to take is to raise their paddle. But there was something that you said when we saw you speak at the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference about the CERTA framework also leading to satisfaction. And without action, we have seen a lack of satisfaction. So if you tell your story well, you put on a beautiful event, there's a great theme, it's a great party, but you didn't give anyone the opportunity to participate, their satisfaction goes down. We hear things like, "Yeah, it was okay, just didn't land the same," or "Oh, it was fine, I didn't love it." And yet sometimes the simplest event with a really well-crafted call to action that allows people to participate will get rave reviews about. People say, "This is the best event I've ever been to." But they won't necessarily be able to target why. Like they won't be able to tell you, "Oh, it was the food," or it was the call to action. They will never say that. And yet your research told us that there's actually something happening right in that moment in the brain. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit just about like the neurochemical response happening when there is an ask or a call to action.
So if I'm creating this high value experience for attendees, then I have put a lot of energy into their brains, or I've induced their brains to expend a lot of energy. And that's kind of like being on a high, right? Like a drug high or something. And so if I'm on that high, I kind of want to keep going. You guys talked about my TED Talk last episode, which is very nice. But, it's such a high when you get a standing ovation. You get you want to do something. You don't want to go to bed, right? So I think it's the same thing with fundraising. If I create this great experience, or, I don't know, whatever favorite rock band, the Rolling Stones, famously will stay up all night after a concert. Well, how can you do that? Well, you're so energized, right? You've absorbed all that energy from the audience. And so you ever create a great event in which these audience members, these potential donors are infecting each other with high immersion, then you put a lot of energy into the room. And so now how do I dissipate that energy? How do I let you kind of get rid of that? And you've got to do something. So, you don't want to trash a hotel room like the Rolling Stones. You give them a chance to sign up, to write a check, to ask for a follow-up. But specific actions, I think, are really useful. And you have that kind of resolution of this amazing experience. And it is replicatable. I mean, this is one of the key points in the book. A great experience, whether it's a movie or a novel or a live event, you can actually do it over and over, and it'll be equally as good. Now, again, you want to have some variation because the brain loves a new thing. But if you've got some formula that works really well, keep the formula, add some little twist to it, but don't try to recreate from whole cloth something that works well already. But you've got to have the ask.
Yeah, we agree wholeheartedly.
Yes,
the ask is where it's at.
We do.
Well, thank you for diving into CERTA with us. I think that each of those phases are such a critical element to the experience. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we want to actually dive into your new publication. So we'll be back to talk happiness with Dr. Paul Zak.
Ready to take your fundraising to the next level? Need to get unstuck in your event planning? Now's your chance to connect directly with the experts behind the Fundraising Elevator. Book a one-on-one consulting session with Sam for strategic planning and fundraising strategy, with Kristen for your programming and storytelling, or Mary for your registration and data tools. They're here to provide you personalized answers to all your event questions. Don't wait. Raise more at your next fundraising event. Book your session today at swaimstrategies.com. You can also find the link in our show notes.
We're here talking about immersion and storytelling and happiness with Dr. Paul Zak.
That's the best. Those 3 words in a sentence, that's a great, great day. You're welcome, listeners. You're welcome.
Well, and I don't know if you know anything about our work, Dr. Zak, but Kristen has been the creative mind behind our work, and she is a storyteller through and through. So your work resonates deeply with our work, and we're super fans. But your more recent publication is a little bit different, and we wanted to talk to you about it's a quick read. It's a tiny little book, but it's full of a lot of great information. The Little Book of Happiness, literally is a little book of happiness, combines your research on oxytocin and happiness with the life of Benjamin Franklin and some self-application to hack your own life for happiness. I'm curious about sort of what did you discover on this path, or what did you discover about hacking your own life for happiness?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Really, most of my professional life has been developing knowledge and technology so that people can live longer, happier, and healthier lives. And this book kind of summarizes that 25-year journey into something practical. We all want to be happier. We all want to live longer. Great. How do I do that? And recent research out of Oxford University showed that about 50% of people's happiness is due to the quality of our social relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I don't disagree. What does quality mean?
Yeah.
Again, from a science perspective, if I can't measure it, it means I can't improve it. And so because we have published research showing what quality means neurologically, so again, that high immersion experience, we've shown that you actually need 6 of these high value experiences per day to really thrive. I need to really be connected. It could be by myself. So I write every day, and sometimes I'll have a real high value, high immersion experience when I'm writing by myself. But almost always these high value experiences are social, and they require us to be present and emotionally open to have that great experience. And again, to kind of stretch our brains so that we're used to being great human beings. So how do I do that? I have to invest in relationships. So the book really is about a bunch of guidelines and the science behind it briefly on how to actually invest in relationships and build stronger friendships, romantic relationships, parent-child relationships. And so it's just a bunch of actions you can take that are scientifically valid, that go through the 45 cardinal virtues that talk about investing in relationships and actual things you can do to practice doing that. So very, very practical, and it goes through alphabetically what these virtues are. Being agreeable, being trustworthy, being patriotic, being caring. So it's really about putting other people ahead of yourself. That's how you build relationships. So if we flip that around, we think about the 7 deadly sins. Those are all about selfishness. It's about I'm more important than you. I'm taking from you. But this book is about how do I invest in those relationships? Again, counter to that simple or simplistic evolutionary approach, which is for me to be a successful creature, I have to get more and more stuff and make more and more babies evolutionarily. We don't see that. Why? Because we have other values. We have ways to live in a happy mode where we're connected to other people. So lastly, one of those is, love is one of those cardinal virtues. And so, one thing I try to do is use the word love at least once a day outside family members. And again, often in the philia sense, right? Like friendships, right? Make sure that my close friends know that I love them. And that means I will always be there for you, whatever you need. I call these the 3 a.m. friends. You call me at 3 a.m., I will show up. You're having a crisis, you need my help, I will be there. And so by having that strong relationship, we have this kind of cocoon around us. We have this sort of bubble that helps us survive the inevitable, slings and arrows that are going to hit us as human beings.
I love the sort of dynamic at play where post-COVID, we saw a lot of isolation. And then we moved into this place where people were like yearning for connection. And we saw a lot more gathering. We saw a lot more connection. And then when announcements came down for our nonprofit friends that there might be risks to federal funding grants, the response that a lot of thought leaders in the sector talked about was gather your people, get together, be in community. Mm-hmm. And I think some people thought, are you nuts? I'm trying to replace my grant funding. I'm busy. But it all speaks to what you're talking about, which is creating that bubble. It was the being in community, being connected, being invested in each other's success, having people around us that felt like our work still mattered. And regardless of this one funding source, we could continue to thrive. For our nonprofits, that same personal action of investing deeply in relationships yielded a professional outcome of organizations being able to continue thriving. So I've loved this book. I'm excited to find out a little bit about, did you discover any like surprises when you were on this path?
Oh gosh, so many. Um, I'll give you one example. One of the suggestions in the book is to um, hold an AMA with your family. Ask me anything. So my girls are 22 and 25, and so over Thanksgiving recently, a couple months ago, I just asked them like, "Would you want to do an AMA with me? Like, you're old enough. I'll just answer every question." At this point,
Uh-huh.
I have nothing to hide. And they were so excited. We set time. They had notes on their phones. They came in with all kinds of questions. And it was a great chance to just kind of open up on anything that you care about. And they weren't, I thought they were going to like, have you ever taken drugs or whatever? They weren't interested in that at all. Like, why'd you go to graduate school? Why do you
Oh,
have three jobs? What's, there's kind of, anything you're good at almost becomes a pathology at some point. Like I work
uh-huh.
7 days a week. I love all three jobs that I have. And they're like, but isn't that unhealthy? Like, why do you work so much? I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to the gym, I'm exercising, I'm seeing my friends and whatever. And so, yeah, I think that kind of level of openness, that vulnerability is really compelling. Now, these are my kids, right? But you could do
Yeah.
that with your friends as well. So sometimes I tend to be the organizer in my friend group, and I will actually just all my friends are introverts like me. So I'll just come up with three or four questions, like kind of deep questions, like what was the worst trip you ever were on? Why was this so bad? Right? Was it
Yeah.
you get stuck? Was it the person? Was it, because kind of like emotionally probing questions that you can ask people. But some are just easy, like talk to people in elevators. That's my favorite one. Like
Mm,
I do it all the time. It amuses me so much and generally makes people smile. Like you're in a hotel or whatever,
yeah.
like traveling, like, hey, where are you coming in from? Got luggage. And they're like, oh, I'm coming in from there. Oh, yeah, I was in New Orleans last week and blah, blah, blah. And just like train yourself to be a connector. And again, I'm an introvert. I can spend 12 hours. You guys don't know because I've been talking nonstop now, but I can spend 12 hours not talking to anybody and be perfectly happy. But it's not healthy to do that. So I've got to remind myself and train myself to be that outgoing person, even if it's not the easiest thing for me.
I appreciate that as the introvert of this group. Um, Benjamin Franklin is on the cover of this book. Can you talk a little
Yeah,
bit? Can you talk
he
a
was
little
the
bit about
inspiration for
him?
this.
Him as the inspiration and the model for this. Yeah.
Yeah, so he read, they're all great readers, the framers of the Constitution, and he had read the ancient Greeks and talked about the virtues as if you live a virtuous life, you're going to be happier. And Ben was a character, right? He was
Yeah.
just a really character. So he thought, okay, well, I want to live a happier life, and I've got to practice the virtues. So he kind of found the 12 virtues, and he kind of made a big worksheet and just started practicing being a more virtuous person. The best part of this story is, he had this group of guys he meet once a month called his junta. And he was so excited, like all of us, when we discovered it. Like, oh, I discovered these 12 virtues and I'm going to practice them. I'm going to be happier. And after this meeting, and give me feedback, and I'm going to make a big chart. And one of the guys in his junta was this Quaker doctor who's pulled him aside afterwards. Hey, Ben, I think you're a little too proud of your discovery. And have you thought about adding humility? And to his great benefit, Ben added humility as his 13th virtue that he would try to work on. So I do think it's an amazing thing that we are, again, so sometimes self-interested that we forget we are embedded in community, in lots of communities, our families, our neighborhoods, our institutions that we work for, and even with fundraisers. And so that community is a source of much joy and value. And people who are not embedded in a community, who are lonely, who are isolated, they're not really very happy, a lot of depressive symptoms. So anyway, the companion app with the book, which is free, is called Six, S-I-X. So people can use this app to see if they're getting happier when they practice these virtues. And it'll tell you, it links to your calendar and your location. It'll tell you what your high value experiences are. And again, they're almost always social. And so anyway, you can get the free Six app on the App Store or the Play Store. And 25 years of my life. Sadly, I don't care about money. I just want people to have a tool and a language to talk about what it means to really thrive. And that means to be connected to others.
I so appreciate the scientific approach to this. I think this translates for our fundraisers in a lot of ways. They have a lot of case building to make happen. And this idea, I think, of community gets thrown around a lot, but also feels really subjective in some ways. And so having these benchmarks where, I can watch my smartwatch and watch my immersive experience of a story happen or not happen, or I have this app and can start to delve into what's actually happening is a great empowerment space for people, but it also allows them to build a case for other folks who may not be interested in that as an idea until they see outcomes. And so I super appreciate your approach to all of that.
Thank you. That's so kind of you to say that. And I think it does come back to fundraising too. That's an opportunity to be part of a community and a helping community. I think it's important. I think particularly Americans, we think we're so independent. I don't need anybody. We all need other people. And to think of those, even 3 or 4 people in your life that you really love outside your family, in your family too, of course, but you're kind of in good shape. If you have just 3 or 4 of those people, and that you may meet them at some event. One of my best friends now I spoke at a medical residency dinner I was invited to keynote at, and I just hit it off with this guy, and we're like super good friends. We hang out all the time. So even in older age, we can actually have these very strong relationships. So it's never too late.
It is never too late. Well, we're going to take a short break. We're going to provide all of these links in the show notes because I think people need to know about both the texts, the videos, your TED Talks, and also the tools. So we'll be sure to provide those links. And when we come back, we're going to ask you to step into an elevator conversation with us. So we'll be right back.
Ready for your hard work to yield more funds at your next event? Join us at Elevate, a nonprofit fundraising event conference designed to bring our community together and make planning successful events easier. Register today for this hybrid conference on March 3rd and 4th, 2026 in Portland, Oregon, or join us online from anywhere. This isn't just another conference. You'll walk away with battle-tested strategies, hands-on tools, and proven templates that top fundraisers use to raise millions. Your mission deserves fully funded success. Register today at swaimstrategies.com.
Welcome back. We are here with the brilliant Dr. Paul Zak. We've been talking about immersion and storytelling and the Little Book of Happiness.
All the good, juicy stuff.
All the amazing things, the bedrock that is community and what that can be for all of us. We ask all of our guests the same question. Join us in the fundraising elevator where we're all headed up. What is one piece of wisdom you would share with nonprofits right now to keep them headed up?
I think the thing I have found that's most effective in engaging with anybody, family, friends, sales prospects, is to think about service, how we can be of service to others. So I think in the fundraising world, we're often thinking about, you need to help us. But we could flip that question around and ask, how do we help you? I think that would be a very interesting approach to building community around a need, a social need. And so think about what that fundraising institution can do to serve their members.
I love that.
I do too.
Thank you for the inspiration today. Thank you for the time.
Yes.
Thank you for the connection and all the insights. We'll provide all of the resources and links. But if people want to know a little bit more about you, how do they find you?
They can find me online. So if you're listening here, I'm happy to take emails. The website is your6.com, your6.com, or just Google me and I'll come up somewhere. So thank you so much. You guys are amazing.
Well, thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced by Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV department. The program is produced and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson and Heidi Christensen. Video production by John Collier. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group. And voiceover by Josh Boykin.
Friends, Before we leave you, we want to ask for your help to make the podcast grow. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please like, follow, subscribe to the Fundraising Elevator. And if you're getting a lot out of the show, please share it with a friend and leave a review. These things help make sure that the podcast continues heading up. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Are you ready to engage supporters and grow your base with your own podcast? Then let us introduce you to our partners at the AV department in Portland, Oregon. In addition to delivering exceptional live event audiovisual production and videography, they also have a top-tier production studio and an expert team ready to take your content ideas to the next level. Contact the AV department to schedule a consultation and start bringing your podcast vision to life.